here's a clip of comic Andrew Schultz on Joe Rogan. And this is, once again, just as I mentioned earlier, every time we put up a Joe Rogan clip and share it to a Bernie forum or a Bernie group, we get nothing but just vitriol and hatred and, oh, you're a simp for Joe Rogan. He's an extremist. He's anti-science. He's a bigot. He's this. He's a Nazi.
You're
he's
a
that.
red-brown alliance.
The red-brown alliance. We got called red-brown so much that we actually thought, now that we have these backdrops, I wanted to get myself a red backdrop and Russell a brown backdrop so we could subliminally put out that we are a covert red-brown alliance podcast. But I didn't want to go that far.
Yeah, and
we're not red-brown.
I was going to put the little piece of duct tape right here.
Black tape there, exactly. But here's Joe Rogan. Here's right-wing, fanatic, maniac, Nazi-adjacent Joe Rogan talking about Donald Trump versus Bernie Sanders.
That's why we hate someone like Trump, because Trump believes he should be president and he wants to be president.
Yes, and there's something a little icky about it.
Out of here.
Dude, and I think that what was so endearing about Bernie. It was like, this motherfucker don't want to win. He wants to help. Now, is his idea of help, do you agree with it? That's to be said by the average person. But did you feel like he cared about winning and controlling?
No.
I never got that sense from him.
No, I got a sense that he genuinely looks out for the working class and he genuinely wants to help people. That's why I said that I supported him.
100%.
And when he was explaining how his situation works with taxes, that they would just tax a small percentage of speculation, of stock trading, just a tiny percentage of all these trades that are happening constantly, and that money could go to education, that money can go to welfare, that money can go to all these different things that would use to benefit society. I was like, I'm in.
That sounds good.
Is that real? What else are you trying to do? You trying to avoid war?
That sounds cool.
What else are you trying to do? Trying to eliminate student debt? I'm in. What else? What about healthcare? Free healthcare? I'm in.
And he's a radical.
Healthcare, he's in. Wall Street tax, he's in. Funding education, he's in. Anti-war, he's in. Medicare for all, he's in. Not in on cage matches between trans women and cis women. Therefore, he's a right-wing extremist bigot who is out of any left coalition. This is absolutely suicidal and delusional to the point where people who are still calling this guy a right-wing extremist are on no intellectual plane above the average Fox News viewer or even above the average Alex Jones viewer. If you can look at something repeatedly that so directly and strongly contradicts your attitude and you don't change your attitude, then you're a propagandized moron. There is no kind way to put that. And so it's unbelievable. Greenwald put out a tweet of that video. He just called them, self-sabotaging, just suicidal, psychotic. That's what they are. That's what they are. This is insane. This is embarrassing. It's embarrassing.
I think most of the people who are parroting, this Rogan hate and all of this, they've been enlisted in a cause they don't really understand. They've been enlisted in a kind of kamikaze mission to dismantle Western civilization. That's essentially what they've been enlisted in. And the picking apart of language, the dishonest arguments, the dishonest attacks, the tendency to go after any pillar of Western society upon which people might point and say, wow, I'm proud of that person. You got to go after Churchill. You got to go after Lincoln. You got to go after everybody. And you have to make these very dishonest arguments, as if people are supposed to have 21st century standards in 1820. And this is what they do with somebody like Rogan. They'll take the person and put them through a very strange lens of, if you don't believe that a trans woman should be in a cage with a biological woman, you're a fucking monster. All of this is aimed at destabilizing society, because to their mind, this society is so unjust. It's so unequitable. It's so irredeemable. The actual specifics are kind of irrelevant. That's what I mean. A lot of people are following it or parroting it. They don't really understand what they're being enlisted to do. They're being enlisted to try to destabilize society. to try to literally destabilize Western civilization by attacking all of its underpinnings.
And this is why the 2016 incarnation of the Bernie left was so appealing to people, including people like Andrew Schultz, who interviewed Alex Jones. By the way, you want to watch an entertaining podcast. Schultz has a podcast where, he's got a huge budget. I mean, this guy is a huge YouTuber. I don't know what his live shows are like, but he's a comic. And I think I forget the name of his podcast. It's like Flagrant or something, or Flagrant 2. He has a set. He and his co-host sat down with Alex Jones. They went through a bottle of Jameson in 3 hours, and Jones is just out of control, even by Jones standards. It's a fucking hugely entertaining podcast, so I recommend you all check that out. But anyway, the point is, if I didn't know anything about this Schultz guy, I would assume he's like, maybe perhaps a sort of like libertarian, right-leaning guy. But no, he says, yeah, no, I'm for Medicare for all. Sure. I'm for a Wall Street tax. I'm for all that. Bernie just seemed like he was trying to help. He didn't seem like he was trying to win and control people. A left that tries to strengthen society and strengthen individual economic units, such as individuals and families. This is why I keep sort of bringing this up every now and then. The idea of a family values left, right? To strengthen families, not to take them apart and redefine them and say what they ought to and ought not be. Not to say what they ought to be either, right? You don't have to be a mother. Right. You don't have to be a man, a woman, and 2 kids. You could be 2 men with kids. You could be a lesbian couple with kids. You could be a trans couple with kids. Whatever. Whatever that is, we don't care what it is, but we want to make it stronger because we want economic units, economic engines. A family is an economic unit. A family is an economic car driving down that superhighway, right? And so, single people can be their own economic unit too. I'm not out here saying everybody has to get married and have kids, but I'm saying that whatever people's choices are, we want to make them as strong as possible in those choices, and then we want them to function as well as they can to make the society function as well as it can. And the Bernie left, the populist economic left, is very appealing to people on those grounds because ordinary people, and when I say ordinary people, yes, I'm talking about people like the most popular podcaster in the United States and one of the most popular YouTube comics, at least in the U.S. I mean, this guy gets hundreds of thousands of views per video, right? I mean, these are pretty mainstream people in our culture. They're so unthreatened by just a simple populist economic message. Sorry, I just want to make this one more point.
Sure.
And then I'll toss, because this relates also to what we're seeing in the Fetterman-Oz race, where Fetterman is opening up a lead against Oz because Fetterman comes off, and we talked about this last week. Yeah, he's probably a bit of a fake, right? He's a rich kid, right? He's not a real Rust Belt populist, but he looks good as one, and he's able to, convince people that he is one. Okay, fine. What is Dr. Oz's main attack against Fetterman? He keeps comparing him to Bernie Sanders. He keeps saying John Fetterman is a Bernie Sanders socialist, right? He's a Bernie Sanders leftist. That's what he mentions it in all the ads, right? Everything is, Fetterman and Bernie. And it's not working. It's not working. Oz is losing because people are not afraid of Bernie Sanders because Bernie, he's grandfatherly. You know what I mean? He's the old guy in a sweater. He's harmless. He's trying to make your life better.
He's the most popular politician in the country.
Right, but the reason for that is because he's trying to make your life better by means that are understandable to people. Okay, yeah, if I had health care, my life would be better. If I made more at my job, my life would be better. If we had a cleaner environment, my life would be better. If we had tuition-free college, my life would be better. If I didn't have to pay $600, $700, $800 a month in student debt, my life would be better. Easy, simple. People understand that. People know that. People get that. People are not threatened by that. They are threatened by you coming in and saying, hey, if your 5-year-old likes playing with Hot Wheels, perhaps you should put her on some sort of like puberty blocker and start looking into reconstructive surgeons. And if you look askance at me when I suggest that, it's because you're a throwback bigot.
Right. Yep.
That scares people. That is what makes people uneasy. That's what threatens people.
Well, Glenn Youngkin, man.
Yeah.
And what was their reaction? It's never self-examination. They never did anything wrong. It's white supremacy. The Asian voters who swung that election are white supremacists. But they've actually lately they've formulated an answer to that too. Now you don't have to be white to be white. you're thinking white. You're essentially white.
Right. Yeah.
So if you can be black and you can be white now. Because they had after the Youngkin result, they had to find a way to deal with the fact that people of color are turning on them too now. So yeah, no, you're white too. You're all white. Everybody who doesn't agree with us is white. If you don't agree with me, that's the definition of white. It's fucking lunacy. It's just lunacy. And that's where I say it's just absurd. Like of all the reasons, I mean, look, Marxism, at least there was some connection to reality. Like we're still debating Marxism. It was based in the Enlightenment tradition of rational thought, of rationally weighing things out and observable realities and feeling a need to base your opinions on facts and figures and statistics. This is just the idea that we're going to lose the country to fascism because some people want to wish cast the idea that there's no difference between Leah Thomas and the girls on that team. That's just incredible. That it's like a satire that you might have written 30 years ago, about these ideas gone crazy. But here we are. Anyone looking at a photograph of like Leah Thomas towering over these girls, how do you say there's no difference? How do you bring yourself to look at that and go, nope. If you see a difference there, you're a bigot.
It's the same level
really
of delusion.
Comes back to Orwell's line. It's amazing. 2 plus the 2 plus 2 equals 5 thing is very famous, but the speech that O'Brien gives is finally the party must suggest or must tell you that 2 plus 2 equals 5. Its entire ideology demands that there is no personal experience and there is no reality beyond what the party dictates. That is very much what that is.
It's the same level of delusion required to watch that Joe Rogan clip and insist, even after watching it, that he is persona non grata to a left movement.
Right.
It is the same level of absurdity.
If you actually wanted to win, you'd go, oh my God, we got him. We got him. We got the most popular podcaster in America. Wow.
And that's what Michael Brooks would say. I played the clip. He says, the left needs a Machiavellian instinct. You need a vision of power. If you don't have a vision of power, you are not a political movement.
Well, they think they're going to gain power this way. I mean, very early on, the people at the forefront of theory, capital T theory, critical race, queer theory, they were all talking about how they wanted to make inroads into university education departments and through that to affect the society. And we're at that phase now. Well, hence Glenn Youngkin.
Well,
because you can't, once you try to do this with parents, now you're running into a brick wall.
It's funny that you mentioned that because that is a good point. And there's a very interesting parallel between what liberals are doing in academia and what conservatives did with the courts. Right?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right-wingers were
It was
out
a very
of power.
long project.
Exactly. Well, it's a long project, and it's also a project of creating their own sort of counter-elite, right? So if you're in a minority electorally, if you're going to have trouble winning elections, which Democrats are going to start having a lot of trouble winning elections because of this, just like Republicans had trouble winning elections for quite a long time, right? In the 90s, and then even in 2000, they lost the popular vote. They barely won in 2004 because it was a wartime year, and then they got beat by Obama, right? They were an electoral minority for a long time.
Right.
And so how do you wield power as a minoritarian faction?
The Democrats held Congress almost continuously from the 30s to the 90s.
Right, yeah, exactly. And, and even during the 60s, JFK had the Republicans down to 32 seats. They were irrelevant, right? So what do you do when you're struggling electorally? You have to find institutions where you can establish your own sort of counter-elite force. Right. And on the conservative side, that was in the courts. At the Democratic side now, it's going to become academia. This is going to be their sector of society where they can build and wield power in an institution that is still sort of built for them, if you get what I'm saying, right? And so it's sort of the same way that those two things are going to function in a very similar way.
Please clap.